Green. Green in Breaking Bad is multifaceted, primarily acting as a symbol of ambition, money, growth, and envy, as well as having a strong connection to chemistry and the nature of methamphetamine itself. Initially, green represents Walter White's drive for upward mobility, the financial impulse that leads him to crime. We see stacks of cash, often green, which become the tangible goal of his journey, representing not only wealth, but also the power and status he craves. His early lab equipment and even his modest Pontiac Aztec car connect him to this phase of aspiration and potential. As Walter delves deeper into the world of crime, green subtly shifts from financial growth to tumor growth, an uncontrolled and destructive advance of his ambition. The color also evokes the chemistry of the lab, the reagents, the flows of illicit money, and the greed that corrodes his relationships. It is the color of the promise of a better life, which turns into the golden trap that imprisons him and transforms him into the monster known as Heisenberg. Green, therefore, encapsulates Walter's initial drive and his eventual corruption, a visual representation of the cancerous growth of his ego and criminal empire. Yellow. Yellow in Breaking Bad is a sign of imminent danger, toxic chemicals, radioactivity, and caution, as well as having a subtle connection to illness. From the beginning, the most prominent use of yellow is in the protective suits that Walter and Jesse wear in the lab. These suits are a constant visual reminder of the volatile and poisonous nature of the methamphetamine they are cooking and the inherently dangerous environment in which they operate. Walter himself, in his early days as Heisenberg, often wears shirts in shades of burnt yellow or yellowish brown, indicating a transition phase to something more toxic and volatile. Yellow is the color of uranium, yellow cake, a highly dangerous radioactive material which reinforces the idea of potent and destructive substances under the guise of science. It is the color of caution, of warnings, of crime scene isolation tape, and of laboratory equipment that could explode at any moment. On a more subtle level, yellow can allude to illness, a constant in Walter's life, linking external toxicity to his own internal condition. It is a color that signals instability, volatility, and the need for extreme caution, mirroring the explosive and unpredictable nature of the criminal underworld in Walter's psyche. Red. Red is the color of anger, violence, blood, intense passion, power, and rebellion. It is a visceral color that bursts onto the screen to punctuate the most emotionally charged and physically dangerous moments of the series. Jesse Pinkman, in particular, often wears red or has red elements in his clothing, especially when he is angry, defiant, or in the midst of violent conflict. This color is inseparable from the bloodshed, explosions, and acts of brutality that become increasingly frequent in Walter's life. Red signals a line crossed, a point of no return, where the consequences become bloody and irreversible. It represents burning passion, whether it's Walter's passion for cooking and accumulating power, or the uncontrollable rage that consumes him. It is also the color of rebellion against authority and social norms. The presence of red objects, such as lamps in tense scenes or surveillance camera lights, often precedes or accompanies violent events or decisive confrontations, serving as a visual warning to the viewer that danger is imminent and emotions are running high. Blue.
What is this shit? This is blue.
Blue carries multiple meanings, the most iconic being the ironic purity of Walter's blue sky methamphetamine. This chemical purity contrasts starkly with the social and human devastation the drug causes, creating a central paradox in the series. In addition, blue is often associated with sadness, melancholy, conformity, and a feeling of drowning. Skylar, entangled in Walter's web of lies and crimes, often wears shades of blue, reflecting her growing despair, her feeling of being suffocated by her husband's choices, and her struggle to maintain a facade of normality. Jesse, in his moments of guilt, depression, and regret, is also seen in blue, symbolizing his inner turmoil and his desire to escape the filth of the business. The empty swimming pool at the White House, a recurring symbol, represents the emptiness, stagnation, and decline of family life. Blue, in its coldness, can also represent the emotional distance between the characters and the isolation that Walter and Skylar experience as their life disintegrates. It is a color that underscores the tragedy and inevitability of consequences, both in the destruction that pure meth causes and in the dissolution of hope. Purple. Purple is almost exclusively attributed to Marie Schrader and symbolizes obsession, luxury, often artificial, perceived power, and a certain artificiality. Marie's fixation on the color purple is a defining characteristic of her personality. From her clothes to her home decor, purple permeates her world, reflecting her compulsion to shop and steal, her quest for social status, and her need to fill an inner void with material goods. Historically associated with royalty and opulence, purple in Marie represents an attempt to create a facade of wealth and glamour, which is often based on deception and misappropriation. It is a vibrant and eye-catching color, much like Marie herself, who often seeks attention and recognition. However, excessive use of purple can seem suffocating or artificial, mirroring the superficial nature of some of Marie's concerns and her denial of deeper problems. Marie's purple is her armor and her addiction, a form of escapism that persists even as her world falls apart, symbolizing the obstinacy of her identity and idiosyncrasies. Black. Black in Breaking Bad is the definitive color of death, absolute power, control, evil, and anonymity, marking finality and the absence of light. It represents Walter White's complete transformation into the ruthless and amoral drug lord,
Heisenberg. You're goddamn right.
Heisenberg's iconic black hat and sunglasses are his uniform, signaling his transition from an ordinary man to an intimidating and mysterious figure of power. Black is the color of death, both the deaths he directly causes and the metaphorical death of his former self. Characters such as Gus Fring also wear black frequently, reflecting their calculating, precise, and ultimately lethal nature. Black symbolizes the absence of morality and hope, the darkness that Walter embraces. It is the visual statement of his dominance and control over his empire. In the final scenes of the series, Walter often wears black, not only as a reminder of who he has become, but also as a man who confronts the consequences of his dark choices. He becomes the void he himself created, the end point of a journey marked by destruction and evil. White. White often represents purity, innocence, cleanliness, a new beginning, usually illusory, or a clinical and sterile environment. Early in the series, Walter White's clothing, such as his white underwear and t-shirts, emphasizes his vulnerability and supposed innocence before his descent into crime. As the series progresses, White takes on a bitter irony. Blue Sky methamphetamine, despite its chemical purity, is far from innocent in its devastating effects. Skylar may wear white at times when she desperately tries to maintain a facade of normality, an image of domesticity, or when she attempts to launder Walter's dirty money, a futile attempt to clean up a filthy business. Hospital environments, where Walter faces his mortality, are often white and sterile, contrasting with the chaos of his criminal life. White can also suggest a void or a blank canvas that is quickly tarnished. It is the color of the idealized life that the Whites desperately try to preserve, but which is systematically eroded by their choices. Its presence on screen often serves to highlight the dissonance between appearances and the harsh reality of corruption. Orange. Orange in Breaking Bad is a vibrant color that represents action, energy, ostentation, and immediate danger, especially linked to the DEA, but also to Saul Goodman's questionable legality. For Hank Schrader, orange is the color of his DEA uniform, symbolizing his energetic and active pursuit of justice and his presence as a constant threat to Walter's operations. It is the color of warning, a sign of caution or danger, especially in the context of confrontation with the law. On the other hand, orange is also the predominant color in Saul Goodman's wardrobe and office decor. For Saul, it represents his flashy and unconventional approach to justice, his extroverted energy, and his ability to operate in the gray areas between legality and illegality. It is the color of boldness and brazen ostentation. The orange of prison uniforms explicitly connects it to consequences and incarceration, serving as a reminder of the ultimate fate of many in drug trafficking. It is a dynamic color, indicating movement, confrontation, and a certain boldness, whether from a law enforcement officer or a corrupt lawyer, always drawing attention to the action to come. Brown. Brown in Breaking Bad sets the backdrop of the mundane, of stability often false or stagnant, of the earth, of decay, and of the common man. It is the foundation of Walter White's initial existence as an undervalued high school chemistry teacher. His clothes in the early episodes, sensible pants, worn jackets, the furniture in his home are predominantly brown, illustrating the dull, ambitionless life he so detested. Brown represents the everyday, the mundane, the everyman existence he desperately wanted to escape. It suggests a certain stability or connection to the earth, which in Walter's case seemed more like stagnation and slow decay. As he transforms into Heisenberg, Brown largely disappears from his wardrobe, reappearing only in contexts that remind him of his past or the dirty money he earned. The desert, a place of death and rebirth for Walter, is predominantly brown, linking the color to the raw and unforgiving elements of nature and the grim reality of his criminal enterprise. It is the color of old, worn out, and slowly decaying things, mirroring Walter's own moral deterioration, beginning with his mundane origins. Pink. The pink of the stuffed animal in Breaking Bad is perhaps one of the most intense and distressing symbols in the series, representing the irreparable loss of innocence, total corruption, and the catastrophic and distorted consequences of Walter's actions. The initial appearance of the pink teddy bear, burned and missing an eye, floating in the pool amid the wreckage of a plane crash, is a deliberate visual shock. The color pink, traditionally associated with childhood, innocence, and sweetness, is here brutally stained by ash and destruction. The bear symbolizes the trauma and death of innocent lives resulting indirectly from Walter's actions, specifically his decision not to save Jane Margolis, which led to her father's fatal error as an air traffic controller. The missing eye is crucial. It represents a distorted view of reality, Walter's moral blindness to the full impact of his choices, or the idea that truth and guilt is only partially seen. The pink stuffed animal becomes a physical and haunting reminder of his guilt, a tangible representation of the beauty and purity he destroyed in his quest for power, a constant premonition of the total disintegration that his life and the lives of everyone around him would suffer.